This gray-haired ugly loser is the most powerful king in the world, winning war after war. But suddenly, he is reincarnated into another life where he is now a weak, helpless child. A sword drips with blood against a fiery backdrop under a crimson sky. The man wielding it has slain a woman, her body motionless on the ground. He then declares himself king and effortlessly defeats an opponent, driving his blade through him in triumph. Overhead, warplanes darken the sky, unleashing bombs that engulf a city in fire and screams. Watching the devastation, his cape billows in the chaos. Yet standing before the crown he once wore, he admits he was merely a king of the past. Suddenly, he plunges into his subconscious, sinking as if into a vast ocean. A child's voice pleads, "Please," as a lush green field appears. A feather drifts toward him, and the child whispers, "In your new life, seek the light." Reborn as a child, he is welcomed as Arthur by a father who admires his hair and a mother who cherishes his familiar eyes. Introducing himself as Reynolds, the man's playful nature confuses Arthur, who struggles to grasp his new reality, until they both declare themselves his parents. In that instant, stuck in his old adult mindset, Arthur realizes he's just been born. Ironic as it seems, after a lifetime of battles and triumphs, he's now a helpless infant unaware of it all. His mother pats his back, prompting a cough, exactly as expected. Still confused, Arthur notes that Alice and Reynolds genuinely believe they are his parents and seem to care for him. Yet having a mature mind and a baby's body fills him with constant fear. When placed in the crib, he instinctively grasps his father's finger, who excitedly tells his wife. Annoyed, Arthur knows it was mere reflex, just like the cry he's about to release, which a sudden bowel movement interrupts. His tiny body is beyond his control, a prison where nothing goes as planned. He tries to wake up, but the nightmare persists. Then, as if things weren't strange enough, he witnesses something even more surreal. Carried outside in his mother's arms, he watches his father unleash magic, shattering a rock with a punch. A piece falls on his head, and Alice quickly heals him with a spell. Stunned, Arthur realizes this world holds powers he never imagined. Reynolds, wielding his magic-infused gauntlet, could even hunt the fiercest boars. Seeing his father return from a hunt, the baby concludes that knowledge is power and carefully observes everything around him. In this society, people may carry weapons, hinting at the dangers around them and pushing individuals to grow strong quickly. Arthur has no intention of being an exception. As Alice rocks him to sleep, he reflects on the frustration of recent days, but admits that moments like these aren't so bad. He recalls tense situations from his past life, where enemies were always loyal, making peaceful sleep impossible. Regardless, his new life as a baby continues, and he soon learns to crawl. One day, he reaches a mirror in his parents' room and sees his reflection for the first time. His parents celebrate each milestone, while he simply tries to grow accustomed to his name, not that it truly matters to him. At bedtime, Alice tucks him in with a kiss, but instead of sleeping, he escapes his crib like Rapunzel from her tower. Having finally gained better control over his body, he sneaks across the kitchen as his mother washes dishes, careful not to make a sound. Opening a door, he reaches his goal, a bookshelf. Knowledge is power, and Arthur is eager to learn about this world. From a book, he discovers that the continent of Decathan consists of 3 kingdoms: Darv, a subterranean dwarf nation; Eleanor, a secluded elven forest realm; and Sapin, a human-controlled, densely populated region, much like his homeland in his previous life. This nation follows a monarchy, but unlike others, the throne is inherited rather than seized. Additionally, its technology lags behind his previous world, and another book explained that magic is the reason for its primitive state. Here, a power source called mana exists, and the ability to manipulate it is mostly hereditary, appearing in about 1 out of every 100 people. Mana can be used in 2 main ways: amplification and conjuration. Amplifiers strengthen their bodies, enhancing speed, power, and resilience, while conjurers shape and direct mana externally. Mastery of mana relies on the mana core, which fully awakens between puberty and late adolescence by concentrating dispersed mana into it. Arthur understands that self-awareness is key to harnessing and releasing this energy, with his Kai acting as a focal point. Fortunately, the wisdom of the late king's past life may aid him in this new existence. Determined, he enters a meditative state, reaching a mental void where he gathers a trace of mana between his hands. Just then, Alice, after searching the house for her mischievous son, finds him. She playfully scolds him for worrying their mother, but her smile fades when she notices something unusual. Arthur fears she has sensed his Kai abilities, only to realize she simply discovered that he needs a diaper change. Arthur becomes even more certain that his body is a cage and seeks more power. The next day, Alice writes in her diary that Arthur turned 2, noting how sweet, curious, and well-behaved he is. However, she is troubled that he never smiles outside. Reynolds teaches his son to wield his stick like a sword, praising his talent. He calls Alice to watch, but she is displeased to see her child playing with something so aggressive. After 2 years, Arthur understands the power balance between his parents, or perhaps women dominate this world entirely. Later, his mother takes him to the city, where he always seems thrilled. Meanwhile, Arthur silently gathers knowledge, assessing the nation's technology through its weaponry and discovering new materials unknown to him. He also witnesses magic firsthand, finding it both fascinating and useful. By evening, asleep on his mother's back, he reflects that this couple has met his needs. Though his life is limited, it is not unpleasant. He wonders if this is what having a family feels like, something he never experienced before. This gentle warmth for his mother isn't bad at all. Speaking of affection, Alice mentions how happy she feels when her son gets out of bed to read or when his eyes light up at the city market, traits he likely inherited from Reynolds. Maybe Arthur, like his father, dreams of exploring the world one day. Still, his mother would rather see him live a quiet life. At dawn, Arthur watches his father train, realizing how lucky he is to have such a role model. After smashing another rock to pieces, Reynolds gives his son a thumbs up, asking if he isn't amazing. Alice rests a hand on Arthur's shoulder, downplaying the feat but assuring him that things will only improve. With that, Reynolds punches the air, unleashing a fierce wind, then stomps, sending a gust that leaves Arthur in awe. His father's strength fuels his own desire to grow, but his mother remains the biggest obstacle. After all, he's still just a baby who needs his nap. Even so, Arthur refuses to back down, reaching for the bookshelf to make his intentions clear. Alice insists it's time to sleep, but he uses his cuteness to win her over. His plan works, and as he clutches a book, he feels like a true champion. As Arthur begins meditating, he recalls the vast knowledge he gained over the past 2 years. The most valuable skill is forming a mana core, gathering scattered magical fragments into a single point. This took immense effort, but the results are finally showing. As he collects the last fragment, an explosion erupts, destroying much of the house. Outside, Reynolds shields his wife from debris, but suffers a serious back injury. They rush inside, and Reynolds reaches Arthur first, shocked to see his 3-year-old son levitating above his own mana manifestation, smirking confidently. Arthur knows his studies have paid off. This is just the beginning. However, pieces of the ceiling threaten to fall on him. He refuses to die after such an achievement. Alice dives to grab him while Reynolds, using his last strength, pushes the wood away. Arthur, now safe, gazes at his mother's teary eyes and realizes how much his parents protect him. Reynolds asks if he's okay, and Alice, clutching him tightly, assures that he is, her most precious treasure. Arthur, confused by her tears, recalls a past life where he won a duel and saw the defeated boy comforted by his parents. Emotions foreign to him surface, and for the first time, he cries, hugging his mother tightly. A man is judged for trying to kill the king despite once being a loyal servant. The law demands strict punishment for such betrayal, but the council shows mercy, letting him return home for judgment. Before his wife and son, he admits his crime and begs only he be punished, fearing that if they return to their homeland, all will suffer a terrible fate. He pleads for their safety. A counselor, speaking through a strange pillar, condemns the man's reckless actions against the revered king, who shouldn't be troubled by such matters. The council, however, decides to punish the whole family. King Grey kills the woman and child himself, an act the counselors see as merciful, freeing them from future pain. The man, like the pillars, thanks the king. Later, Arthur receives matching gauntlets from the king and excitedly gives one to his son, who prefers his wooden sword. Alone, the boy thinks that if he had to fight with such a weapon in his small body, he'd die before getting close to his enemy. Despite everything, he grabs a stick and challenges his son to a duel. Arthur doesn't hesitate and swiftly counters with agile strikes. After parrying them, the man enhances his sword with mana, but Arthur unexpectedly does the same, breaking the stick. Impressed, the man quickly tells Alice the boy needs a personal mentor. She rejects the idea, reminding him he promised to train Arthur himself, which was Ray's true intention. Still, the boy's potential is exceptional and demands proper guidance. So Alice offers to teach him magic, but Reynolds objects, saying Arthur's case is unique. He split mana-infused wood at age 4. Realizing the seriousness, Alice still resists. She doesn't want her little boy leaving for some far-off city. Reynolds asks her to consider his future, while she urges him to think about the present. They'll miss watching him grow. Arthur, noticing how emotions cloud their judgment, suggests a third choice. They all go together. His parents stare at him in awe, then quickly start packing. Arthur thinks they always had this energy. They just needed a reason to show it. Hours later, in front of 2 carriages, Arthur Lewin introduces himself at his father's request. Nearby, armed figures gather at the Lewin home. One warrior kneels and claims they've met, though Arthur supposedly wouldn't remember, yet he does. They are the Twin Horns, Reynolds and Alice's former group. Their leader, Adam Crunch, is joined by Angela Rose, who hugs Arthur tightly until Durden Walker intervenes and offers Arthur a hand to slap. Silent atop one carriage sits the mysterious Jasmine Flamesworth, while the pointy-eared Archer introduces herself as Helen Shard. The preparations complete, Reynolds gives the order to depart. As they ride towards Xyrus City, Arthur compares the outdated carriage to the ski ships of his past life, but finds it decent enough. During a rest stop, the group is ambushed by wolves. Jasmine swiftly eliminates several with her daggers. Reynolds lands a punch with his gauntlet. Adam pierces one with his spear. And Helen downs enemies from afar with precise arrows. Arthur realizes the three are enhancers. Meanwhile, Conjurer's Durden shakes the ground with earth magic, and Angela repels a wolf with wind. Watching the fight, Arthur realizes he needs to catch up to their level. Afterward, the group camps overnight. As night falls, they light fires for dinner. Reynolds tells his son to eat freely, but the boy isn't used to wild game. Meanwhile, Alice overeats and gets sick. She notices her husband is hurt and gets up to heal him, but has to wait for Jasmine, Helen, and Durden, and oddly, Jasmine must approve. During healing, Arthur senses his mom is a rare kind of mage, a healing broadcaster, which explains why they hide in the countryside. Once done, her husband thanks her. Then Adam unexpectedly asks Reynolds to borrow Arthur for some exercise. Realizing it's more than just training, Arthur joins. When Adam powers up his spear, Arthur responds with stronger mana and a green leg boost that stuns Adam. Despite being 4, Arthur moves so fast he catches his opponent off guard by appearing behind him. Though the boy is left exposed and loses his footing, giving up his advantage, he and the spearman clash until the latter launches him into the air with a special move. Arthur regrets being too light for combat, but Angela catches him with wind magic. Afterward, Durden and Helen criticize Adam's roughness, yet the spearman praises Arthur's tenacity, jokingly asking if Reynolds gave him some kind of miracle training. He denies it. Suddenly, Jasmine approaches Arthur, eager to learn his technique, showing the determined gaze he knows too well. By the next afternoon, Arthur reflects on the smooth trip so far. During a break the following day, he trains with the adults, refining body and mind. Honored to pass on past life knowledge, he teaches the Dagger Girl and demonstrates his speed using a green aura buff. That night, he reads by candlelight before eating, only to be surprised. At dawn, Jasmine gifts him a rope-tied dagger, knowing it's his birthday. While observing the scene, the women are amazed Jasmine finally befriended someone, which is rare for her. The men then call everyone to resume the trip, and Arthur notices his mother seems unwell, though she hides it. As the convoy moves towards Xyrus, it's ambushed by thieves launching arrows. Angela blocks some with magic, but they're badly outnumbered. The bandit leader orders the women and children spared for their worth, while Arthur reflects that such cruelty exists everywhere. The attackers descend from the hills. Alice clutches her son, vowing to protect him. Durden casts a fireball that hits the ravine, and Reynolds defeats several foes with martial skill. Helen saves an ally by shooting a bandit behind him, and Adam strikes enemies with his spear. Jasmine, swift as ever, dodges through the fight. Arthur knows his team is skilled, but raw talent isn't everything in war. Durden, still raging, slays May to protect Angela, but the enemies keep coming. Arthur realizes their power lies in sheer numbers. Despite fighting well, Reynolds is hurled into a carriage and briefly taken out. Alice and Arthur leave the damaged cart, but their father urges them to stay, saying his wound isn't serious. He warns that if the bandits find out about Alice's power, things could turn dangerous. He tells Arthur to run with his mother, revealing she's pregnant. Realizing why she'd been sick, Arthur accepts his role and boosts his speed. As they flee, the bandit leader sends men after them. At the same time, Reynolds, though hurt, charges the enemy and slows him down. Arthur and Alice are ambushed by 2 thieves, but Jasmine and Adam eliminate them, while Helen gives cover from afar. While escaping, Arthur thinks about the irony. Once a taker of lives, now he's running to protect them. He wonders if this is karma. A bandit mage casts a spell. Arthur shields his mom and takes the hit, falling off a cliff. Before he drops, he uses Jasmine's dagger to drag the attacker with him. Durden and Angela try to catch him with magic, while Alice screams his name. As he falls, Arthur feels strangely complete, realizing the meaning of family and sacrifice, and that he was about to become a big brother. It would have been beautiful. Hours later, he wakes up in the dark woods, dazed when the ground shakes. A huge, terrifying creature appears and greets Arthur by name, as if they've met before. In another world, a young girl claims she's found something rare and beautiful, while another warns of inevitable trouble. Arthur, frightened but trying to stay composed, questions what the creature before him is and why he's there. A younger version of him charges at it recklessly but is easily thrown back. A calm voice speaks through the beast, telling Arthur he still has much to learn but that she's actually on his side. The creature plucks fruit from a nearby tree, offering it to him, hinting that he needs to recover. Barely conscious from his injuries, Arthur is told he's fortunate to be alive and must eat if he wants answers. He does, immediately asking about his parents. Though unable to leave her realm, the creature reveals a vision of a violent clash and assures him his parents escaped safely. Overcome, Arthur sheds a tear, unsure who to thank until she reveals her name. Sylvia. Inside the strange shell, the younger girl asks what to do next, and Sylvia tells her the answer is already there. Days pass. Arthur recovers and wants to return home, but Sylvia says it's not time yet. They're too close to the perilous forest. Still, she has a plan. When Arthur grows impatient, she explains that opening a portal takes time. He playfully swings his stick like a sword and Sylvia laughs, saying it's good for kids to stay active. While training, Arthur wonders why Sylvia never shares her past despite her eerie form. She's kind. Later, he meditates and releases his aura. Surprised by his natural mana, Sylvia asks if he can harness energy like she does. Arthur watches as she gathers and casts mana at once, amazed. She explains that while most separate those steps, creatures like mana beasts do both instinctively. She asks if he wants such a power, and seeing his excitement, pushes further. What would he do with it? Arthur hesitates, thinking of those who protected him in this life. With conviction, he says he'd destroy anyone who threatens what he holds dear. Instantly, Sylvia smacks his forehead, sending him bouncing. She tells him he failed. Arthur protests. Of course, he wanted to crush his enemies. That's how he became a powerful king before. But Sylvia is unimpressed, warning him that such violent thoughts will poison his mind. After a pause, wondering if she'd hit too hard, the boy insists he's fine. Sylvia reminds him her strength could hurt or heal, and asks what she prefers. Arthur chooses kindness. She agrees. Rage flares fast, turns to violence, and always ends in hate. That's not why she saved him. Her words make Arthur wonder if she somehow knows everything about him. Then, bringing the focus back, she asks again, "What will you do with that power?" Arthur, remembering his loved ones, firmly says he'll use it to protect them. Sylvia smiles, calling it the perfect answer, while nearby a similar beast watches, determined not to let her escape. The story shifts to Arthur's past life. He walks a corridor as servants bow to King Grey. A startled noble welcomes him gratefully, but Grey reflects that despite his title, true power belonged to Parliament. The nation was crumbling, birth rates falling, and war was all he had. Though praised for his victories, he felt like a weapon, not a ruler. Ignoring the flattery, he tells Marlin he's stepping down. Later, the crown lies broken, the king's sword planted like a marker. Reborn, Arthur now learns to harness a rare power Sylvia says could be limitless. He sweats, fighting to stay focused. In his past, King Grey lacked many things, but above all, he hungered to keep winning. In a fierce clash with a beast, his sword strikes, surging with that immense energy. Years later, Arthur, still remarkably fortunate and youthful, gathers the magic needed to complete his mentor's mission. Just as he grins, a sudden strike knocks him behind some rocks. Sylvia urges him to stay hidden. From cover, Arthur watches as a creature appears, one that looks like Sylvia. She's stunned it found her. The male beast, drawn by the scent of blood, demands she come with him. When she refuses, he attacks, casting dark magic. Though she absorbs it, the spell drains her strength. In pain but defiant, she warns she's not afraid, even if using such power shortens her life. She unleashes a radiant aura, her body fracturing to reveal a glowing dragon spirit. She blasts him with energy, and though he swears revenge, Sylvia finds peace. He recovers, shaking the cavern with magic, and hurls a storm of dark spheres. Afterwards, Sylvia frantically searches for Arthur. Her foe questions her concern before launching another orb, but she freezes time, leaving only her and Arthur unaffected. She calls to him, explaining she had to act, and wonders if she now resembles Sylvia more. Confused, Arthur asks if she's a dragon. She confirms that's what humans call her kind. She opens a portal, apologizing that the exit is farther than expected, but assures him he's ready. Before he departs, she asks what he'll do with his strength. He vows to protect those he loves. Seeing her injuries, he tries to help, but she stops him, giving him a feather, an egg, and a strange mark on his arm. She doesn't explain it, only saying he'll understand in time. Finally, Sylvia says goodbye. Though Arthur is devastated, she reveals she could have sent him home long ago, but stayed because she treasured their time. When he asks if he can save her, she tells him this was always meant to be, and his promise won't change that. She spoke so calmly and simply that it took the boy by surprise. Perhaps it was the gratitude he felt that made the pain intensify. Maybe their time together had changed him. With tears in his eyes, Arthur declares he doesn't care if Sylvia is a dragon. She feels like family. Sylvia gently reminds him that he already has a mother, but when he suggests she could be his grandmother, her eyes well up. She softly asks him to repeat it, and when he does, a single tear slips down her cheek. She nudges him toward the egg and feather, urging him to enter the portal. Just as he's about to disappear, he begs her to come, but the portal's magic pulls him in. Alone, Sylvia sighs and lets time flow again. At that moment, the enemy's spell strikes her, knocking her down. He mocks her silence, but then notices the blood and wonders if he went too far. That he doubts someone like Sylvia could be killed by such a weak blow. He's wrong, she's pretending. In an instant, she releases a powerful magical blast that lights up the cave. In her mind, she wonders if it was enough. A younger voice answers, it was. The elder then entrusts everything to her companion, who promises to take care of it. As Arthur steps through the portal, Sylvia speaks to him telepathically, reminding him of her earlier words. When he agrees, she reassures him he'll be fine. Still, Arthur feels immense sadness, and Sylvia acknowledges the world is full of sorrow, but that it's possible to turn pain into joy. Arthur shouts that he can't do that, but she gently says he can take his time. That's all she asks. She believes in him, calling him the strongest king she's ever known. Shocked by her words, Arthur wonders how she knows, but Sylvia only asks him to fill his heart with light, not anger. Something stirs within him. He starts to suspect Sylvia played an important role in his past. Suddenly, he finds himself lying just as he did when they first met. Tears rise as realization dawns. Quietly, he stands, places the egg, the gift, into his bag, and hears a sound nearby. Arthur quickly boosts himself up a tree using his enhanced strength and realizes the egg he carries is exposed. He secures it in his bag before leaping through the branches, where he spots bandits attacking a carriage and capturing a young elf girl to sell into slavery. A scene triggers memories of when this same gang attacked him recently. As the elf is tossed into the carriage, Arthur's rage flares, recalling how Sylvia denied him training due to his aggressive mindset. Determined to stay in control, he follows the carriage to the bandits' camp as night falls. When one of the captors makes a disturbing comment about the girl, Arthur senses danger but chooses to wait calmly for the right moment. Observing the horned wolves at the camp, he notices they are subdued by enchanted collars. To stir chaos, he throws fruit at a wolf, prompting it to growl loudly. One of the bandits responds with brutal force, and Arthur seizes the chance. He strikes him down using mana like a blade. Taking the fallen man's weapon, Arthur quickly eliminates a second enemy who comes to check. Fatigue sets in from fighting in a child's body, but he still manages to swiftly cripple a third attacker as he arrives. Though barely conscious, the bandit warns his ally that the boy is a mage. The fourth henchman reveals his own magic and suggests keeping Arthur alive as a child sorcerer is more valuable than the elf they captured. He attacks, but Arthur dodges and counters with a missed kick. Arthur then hurls his rope-tied dagger, which is caught midair, exposing him. The bandit kicks Arthur down and tries to carry him off, but Arthur burns his knee. Furious, the bandit changes his mind. He'll sell Arthur's body instead. Arthur takes advantage of the rage, throws the dagger again, and kills him with a hit to the head. The last bandit begs for mercy, but Arthur remembers the elf did the same and was ignored, so he finishes him too. Entering the carriage, Arthur removes the elf's blindfold, briefly seeing her as someone else. He frees her, and when she asks if he's hurt, he shows a painful wound. Knowing she's the first child he's met in this world, he then covers the corpses, saying it's not something a child should see. The girl replies that the human is just a kid too, leaving him speechless. She asks about her kidnappers, so the boy lies, saying they had an accident, but everything's fine now. Arthur then gathers her things, noting how lucky it was he showed up. She blushes, silently takes his hand, hoping he understands she's scared to be alone. Arthur promises the men won't return. She thinks, he must be nuts to leave a pretty girl like me alone. Arthur assumed the forest was safe for elves, but she corrects him. Her parents warn that ghost trees could devour young elves. When he asks where she came from, she randomly points the wrong way. He asks how far her home is, but she doesn't know. She got lost chasing bugs. Arthur figures she's a bit irrational, but remembers how he too was once a lonely child. He decides not to abandon her, though he doesn't know how to handle the horned wolves. He considers putting them down, but the elf suggests freeing them. Arthur worries they might attack, but she says they were only being controlled by bad people and aren't truly dangerous. The forest dwellers value life, so she frees the animals who leave peacefully. She and Arthur continue walking through the woods until dawn. During a rest, Arthur asks her name. She says it's Tessia Eralith. After introducing himself, he offers her soup, guessing she's hungry for the long trek ahead. His comment reminds him of the fruit Sylvia once gave him, and he realizes he's starting to sound like her. Tessia says the soup smells strange, and Arthur explains it's just salted, boiled dried meat, better with herbs. Her reaction makes him reflect on how he's always seen food as just fuel. She says she wishes for sweets, and he notes how childlike she seems. When she asks why he's in the forest, he says he lost his family, which she relates to being lost herself. Arthur asks about the elves' homeland, and Tessia shares that Eleanor is fun, though her busy parents leave her in the care of her grandfather and helpers. The journey drags on, and they still have no clue where Eleanor is. At one point, insects swarm Tessia, which she says are normal in her homeland and used to mark paths. She jokingly puts one on Arthur's ear as an earring, and he realizes this is how kids play, something he never got to experience. While they walk, Tessia excitedly says she'll train at her master's home once her mana awakens. Arthur wonders why there's no school system in her land, but she doesn't understand what he means. Meanwhile, a horned wolf stalks nearby, and Arthur notices it. At night, the wolf howls, and Arthur regrets not killing it earlier to avoid a potential attack. He tells Tessia to rest in the tent while he keeps watch. Alone, he reflects on Sylvia's reason for giving him the egg. Tessia, unable to sleep, recalls her grandfather's warning about sleeping near boys, but she's willing to trust Arthur. When he insists she sleep, she argues that if he stays outside, bandits might realize kids are alone and target them. Misunderstanding her concern, he asks if she's scared of ghosts. She denies it and says it's safer if he stays in the tent. Eventually, he agrees. Pretending not to be afraid, Tessia asks him not to leave without telling her and to escort her if she needs the bathroom. Later, she guesses he's from the human kingdom and says her grandfather claimed men there are womanizers. Arthur asks if she even knows what that means, and she admits she might not, so he explains that mostly nobles have multiple wives. The girl is nearly asleep before finally dozing off, and Arthur finds the moment oddly sibling-like. By dawn, they're resting in the tent. After packing, their journey resumes. Tessia seems more comfortable with Arthur, as if she's forgotten her attackers. Though Arthur worries about his own family, a sudden surge of mana pain shifts his focus. Tessia rushes to gather plants, but Arthur is too weak to stop her from entering the woods alone. His pain worsens, growing more frequent. Then a horned wolf appears with the piglet but leaves it peacefully. Tessia returns with stomach medicine, and Arthur warns her to keep away from the wolf. She believes the creature is showing gratitude. That night, they cook the pig over a campfire. Tessia brings mushrooms, common among Eleanor's women, for their nutrition. Arthur eats them, but ends up sick, spending the night relieving himself in the woods. As they settle down again, Tessia shares that elves often tell tales about humans and dwarves before sleep. The elf had always dreamed of visiting these lands, but feared the presence of untrustworthy people. In Eleanor, distrust toward outsiders, especially humans, is common. After finishing her story, Tessia notices Arthur has dozed off, so she gently covers him and reflects that she's more mature. At dawn, they resume their journey, though Arthur struggles with stomach and mana issues, aware that children aren't built for such tough travels. Tessia, feeling they've grown close, asks if she can call him Art. He agrees, though his flat tone prompts her to tease him. He replies sarcastically, saying it's a great honor for a simple country boy like him to be addressed so kindly by Lady Tessia. She scolds him for sounding like an old man, and he snaps back, mocking her for being a crybaby. Tessia, irritated, especially since she was warming up to him, grows quiet when the word friend stirs painful memories for Arthur. Eventually, they reach a portal that lifts Tessia's spirits. She offers her hand to Art, and they enter Eleanor, a breathtaking forest city. Tessia lands gracefully, but Arthur crashes. Alerted by the teleportation, elven guards arrive and seize him roughly. Arthur calls out to Tessia for help, but she stays silent. Arthur instantly regretted lowering his guard around Tessia, blaming himself for trusting the seemingly innocent elf. When Elf ordered his execution, Tessia intervened, claiming Arthur had saved her. The officer accused him of brainwashing her, but an older elf emerged from a portal and commanded Arthur be spared. Tessia greeted him as her grandfather, Reincarnated, former king of Eleanor, who thanked Arthur and revealed Tessia was the princess. Arthur was stunned, as she never mentioned her royal status. Her parents soon arrived, relieved, though the king was outraged by a human's presence. Virion, however, ordered the guards to stand down, praising Arthur's bravery. Tessia confirmed his story and asked that he be invited to the castle. Despite the taboo, she welcomed Arthur with kindness. As they left, Virion expressed interest in speaking with Arthur, who sensed a strange power in the old elf. As they walked to the castle, Tessia held Arthur's hand and led him through the market nestled in the towering trees of Elshire Forest, where the unusual homes of Eleanor's people stood. Arthur felt the heavy stares and lingering resentment toward humans. a deep-rooted hatred born from past wars that still haunted the land. Everything about the city struck him as strange, including Tessia, who had saved him yet eyed him coldly when the guards had attacked. His chest still ached, and he knew he couldn't afford another mistake here. When they reached the castle, Tessia was welcomed by her maids and ordered that Arthur be treated kindly, calling him her savior and vouching for his character despite being human. Arthur asked to speak with her about what was happening, and soon her family gathered around a table of fine food. Though he hesitated to sit, Tessia urged him to join them. Seated at the head of the table, Arthur felt isolated and out of place. King Alduin introduced himself, and Queen Muriel, and Arthur, calling himself a humble peasant from Sapin, expressed his surprise at being among nobles. Alduin complimented his speech, and Arthur sensed he was earning their respect. When asked about the forest, Arthur admitted to being separated from his family during a bandit attack, but withheld some details. Mentioning Tessia shifted the mood. Alduin slammed the table upon learning slave traders had targeted his daughter, condemning humans for such evil. Arthur countered that cruelty wasn't tied to race. When asked how he saved the princess, he revealed he was a mage, but a soldier doubted his story, accusing him of lying to gain entry to their realm. Virion firmly ordered his soldiers not to raise their voices at the visitor, and Tessia confirmed the human's account, recalling how the men had planned to sell her for her racial value. As the memory overwhelmed her, her mother comforted her with a warm embrace. Alduin believed the human's story, and while grateful, Arthur requested to return to Sapin to reunite with his family after a bandit attack. Despite the peaceful meeting, Alduin hesitated, wary of helping a human due to lingering racial tensions. Arthur argued that true civility meant rising above prejudice, leaving Alduin speechless and prompting Virion to admit the boy had a point. Still, Alduin noted that hatred between their races wouldn't vanish overnight. Tessia challenged her father's stance with a stern look, pushing him to reconsider. Pressured, Alduin revealed the portal to Sapin opens only every 7 years, with 5 years remaining, too long to host a human. So he arranged for soldiers to escort Arthur home the next morning. Arthur is tempted by the hope of returning home, but the worsening pain in his chest reminds him something is wrong. That night, while staying with the elves, the pain intensifies during his shower, and he silently calls out to Sylvia. Seeking relief, he steps onto the balcony, lost in thought. Seeing Tessia with her smiling parents, he wonders if his own, Reynolds and Alice, are safe, though he believes they wouldn't fall so easily. Yet doubt creeps in, and he questions whether they'd still smile at him after all that's happened. Unable to sleep, Arthur wanders the kingdom, eventually running into Tessia. She apologizes for her family's earlier treatment of him, but Arthur takes no offense. He knows it came from concern. Teasing her about acting like a spoiled princess sparks her irritation, though she insists everything will be fine once he finds his family. Still, Arthur doubts, wondering if his existence has only caused suffering from the start. Although still a child, Arthur feels guilty for failing to protect his family. Tessia, moved by his pain, gently scolds him, saying his parents would be sad not to see him and that even she already feels sorrow at his upcoming departure, showing how loved he is despite his self-doubt. Suddenly, glowing firefly bees light up the sky, revealing visions of Ray and Alice, making Arthur question what he's truly been fighting. Despite the beauty, he's haunted by Tessia's expression during his capture, sensing the darkness still within him. He tries to apologize, but projectile suddenly whizzes by, caught instinctively by Arthur. The thrower is Lord Virion, observing from afar. Though harmless, the bee was a test of Arthur's reflexes, confirming his combat story. Arthur asks if he's being tested, while Tessia defends him, saying he's not the kind of human her grandfather despises. Virion replies that he's not here to mock the boy. Arthur summons a wooden sword, and Virion, intrigued by him, tosses over a weapon and levitates his granddaughter to safety. Arthur attacks swiftly, but the old elf king easily dodges with surprising agility. Despite his youth, Arthur must rely on mana just to keep up, as Virion is far faster. Every strike Arthur attempts is countered, and eventually, Virion shatters his sword with his bare hand. A wooden shard flies toward Tessia, but Arthur redirects it with a handle. Turning to magic, Arthur charges again, only to be repelled. Still, he pushes on and finally lands a hit, surprising Virion, who calls for round 2. Tessia scolds him for being too rough, but Virion insists he had to be serious or risk getting hurt. Amused, Arthur says it's an honor to be overestimated, and Virion, impressed, offers to train him. Though hesitant, Arthur is moved when Virion promises to inform his parents he's safe. But the pain in his chest returns, and Virion confirms his fear. Arthur carries a bestial will and will die if he doesn't accept the training. Arthur suddenly found himself in a shadowy, dreamlike place, chest pain so sharp it seemed to rip him open and release a hostile form of his own fear. Paralyzed, he couldn't fight back until his new elf companion yanked him from the nightmare. Still groggy, he muttered for 5 more minutes, mistaking Tessia for the dream creature. Offended, she shook him harder and reminded him he had to see his grandfather. After some resistance, he got up. When Tessia asked if he was really staying, he said he wasn't sure. It might become clearer after a walk. Calling her princess earned him a pinch. She disliked formal titles. Later, at their meeting, King Aldwin protested the human boy's presence in the elven city, citing tradition. Varian argued Arthur should stay as he liked him. When Tessia defended Arthur, Aldwin silenced her. Tired of the dispute, Varian dismissed them and told the kids to board the carriage. As they rode off, Arthur asked how long it would take to meet Grandpa's mysterious friend. The older elf chuckled, questioning Arthur's phrasing. Arthur replied it depended on what happened next. Varian smiled, promising to grant his wish. Tessia, half asleep, rested her head on Arthur's shoulder. Varian remarked that she'd risen early, eager to ask about her new human companion's fate. As crowned heir, Tessia had lived a lonely life, often betrayed by both adults and peers, which led her to shut others out. But with Arthur, she smiled, a genuine smile Varian hadn't seen in years. Grateful, he thanked Arthur, surprising the boy since few grown-ups ever did. That honesty won Arthur's trust. Eventually, they arrived at a hidden cottage. Arthur wondered who was important enough for a former king to visit. Varian kicked the door, shouting for the old witch, but when he leaned in to listen, the door hit him in the face. A cranky woman scolded him, and he introduced her as Ringia Darkasen, a rare-type mage and old friend. Arthur recalled that special mages, like Alice, didn't follow standard magical rules. Varian said she might grant Arthur's wish, and the boy gratefully thanked him. Ringia, uninterested in pleasantries, told them to come in so they could start. Inside, the cramped room was filled with books, and Arthur questioned what help she could offer. Soon, all 4 sat at a table with a bowl of water at its center. Arthur said he'd come to try reaching his parents, just like Varian had once told him was possible. Rhea laughed when Arthur called Varian Grandpa, joking that the old man must be getting soft to let someone talk to him that way. She then revealed she was a seer and using her gift, since Arthur was no ordinary child. Some parts of his spirit were hidden even from her sight. Usually, she could glimpse bits of a person's past and future. She asked if he was there to learn his fate, but with eyes downcast, Arthur said he only wanted to know if his parents were alive and safe. Rhea told him to stare into the water and picture them clearly in his mind. As he focused, she cast a spell near his head and instructed him to speak once he saw them. Suddenly, Arthur saw his mother, her warm, sun-kissed skin and soft reddish-brown hair. Then came his father, calm and gentle at home, but a fierce warrior and respected leader in the world. In the vision, Alice was serving Reynolds a bowl of stew, the kind Arthur loved most. She mentioned it was their son's birthday, and the memory brought tears. The pain of losing Arthur still clung to them. After his disappearance, the grief was unbearable. Durin even punched Reynolds once after finding him drunk in sorrow. But life slowly had carried on. The carriage rolled on, life had to go on. Alice and Reynolds were honored for their mission's success, even receiving a mansion. Alice's pregnancy was healthy, and they were ready to move forward. Reflecting on it all, Reynolds regretted asking Arthur to protect them, and both parents wept. Suddenly, Arthur contacted them through elven magic, assuring them he was alive in Alinor. Though eager to return, a strange ailment in his chest kept him there for treatment. He promised it wasn't serious and vowed to come back soon. Before ending the spell, Arthur urged them not to blame themselves. He would have gone regardless. Unsure when he could speak again, he asked them to stay safe. As the magic faded, Alice and Reynolds embraced, crying and smiling. In Alinor, Arthur let a tear drop into the basin, relieved they were safe. With resolve, he asked Varian to train him. Hours later, they reached the palace, where Tessia again tried to reason with her father, reminding him it was the human boy who saved her. Not wanting to seem ungrateful in front of the people, Aldwin finally gives in, letting Arthur stay as long as no trouble arises. Varian assures him Lewin will be under his watch and takes full responsibility. Reluctantly, Aldwin defers to his father's judgment. The king then personally apologizes to Arthur for his earlier behavior, admitting years of ruling have made him stubborn, and thanks him again for saving Tessia, officially welcoming him. Queen Muriel also offers her apology, hoping Arthur will feel at home. Arthur wonders why they changed so quickly, but seeing Tessia and Varian, realizes the king yields to his daughter and father. Tessia pushes further, asking to show Arthur the city. Aldwin hesitates, but Muriel's approving smile seals it. Tessia excitedly leads Arthur through Alinor, beginning with its vibrant market, his first true glimpse of elven life, and it leaves him in awe. Tessia, brimming with excitement, yanks Arthur by the arm toward a nearby market known for its tasty treats, warning they'll miss out if they don't hurry. Along the way, they encounter a snobby elven boy who recoils at Arthur, calling him dirty with human germs and insisting that even if Lord Varian likes him, humans don't belong here. Arthur, amused rather than offended, decides to play along, likely thanks to Tessia's influence. As other elves sneer, one haughty boy claims that Tessia's status will be stained by associating with a human. Dramatically, he introduces himself as Ferith Ivzar II and offers to escort her instead. Arthur mocks all, sarcastically praising the legendary Ferith. Furious, the boy challenges Arthur to a duel to protect his honor. Tessia warns him that Arthur is Lord Varian's apprentice, but Ferith refuses to back down, demanding to know if Arthur will accept or flee like the monkey he is. Though reluctant, Arthur agrees, finding the whole thing a bit childish. The duel begins with Tessia as the referee. Ferith charges in, yelling for Arthur to pray, but Arthur calmly delivers one punch to the face, sending the elf boy flying. Unsure if he even hit that hard, Arthur watches as Ferith's friends rush over, but Tessia quickly pulls Arthur away. The tour must continue. Her radiant smile captivates him as they explore the market, filled with exotic foods, unique crafts, and even an elven library. He's amazed. Later, Tessia asks if he's ready for training. He says yes, but his expression betrays his nerves. He recalls Lord Varian's warning. The training will be intense and he's here alone without his family. Still, Arthur is determined. Smiling at Tessia, he promises himself to give it everything. She notices his resolve and matches it, promising not to fall behind. Then, breaking the moment, she admits she's hungry again. The next day, Arthur starts training, taking a moment to reflect. The journey so far has been tough but rewarding. 3 years later, Tessia jolts him awake with magic. Annoyed, he groans and she tells him she did try to be gentle, at first. Soon after, the king and queen depart for a meeting while Tessia hands Arthur a sandwich, joking that food tastes better from a pretty girl. Arthur, unfazed, takes a big bite and teases back, asking where this pretty girl is hiding. Later, as they stretch before training, Varian scolds them for being late and tosses each a wooden sword. As the kids jokingly vow to defeat each other, Varian muses it's time they advance. After Tessia is knocked down in their spar, he begins a magic lesson, explaining that once mana is stabilized, a person can control an element, fire, earth, water, or wind, depending on their race. Elves align with wind, dwarves with fire and earth, and humans can access all four, though most bond with just one. Rarely, a human can master all. Still on the ground, Tessia asks why Arthur doesn't train his body with magic like she does. Varian bluntly says he's too weak. His mana holds a beast will. Arthur suddenly feels a sharp pain in his chest. Varian explains the beast will disrupts the harmony between the body and mana core, causing pain. The word beast sends Arthur's mind spinning. Varian says the first step is spreading mana throughout his body. Tessia mocks Arthur, saying he's only acting like this because she beat him in their duel. Arthur groans that anyone would hurt after taking a hit from her. He recalls how elves awakening their mana at 10 is rare talent. Tessia did it at 9 and has trained with him daily since. Seeing Arthur still has some strength, Varian tries to awaken the beast's will in him, hoping to ease his pain and help him become a beast tamer. Varian casts a fire spell, aiming it at Arthur's chest, but it spirals out of control and explodes, knocking them both back. A glowing mark appears under Arthur's eye before he faints. He's brought to the palace, where he wakes up to a concerned Varian. When asked about the beast will, Arthur remembers Sylvia revealing herself as a dragon. Upon hearing this, Varian becomes stern and warns him to keep it secret, as the dragons will stir conflict. Changing the topic, Varian informs Arthur he's returning home in 4 months, shocking him. He thought he had 2 years left. Varian explains a cultural exchange is coming between the 3 kingdoms. While the gates to Zyra City open, Arthur realizes that's likely why the king and queen left earlier. Noticing his distant look, Varian asks what's wrong, reminding Arthur he'll finally see his parents. When Arthur stays silent, Varian tells him to rest. Training will be even harder tomorrow. Arthur asks if Tessa knows. Varian assumes she does. In fact, she's just received the news. That night, Arthur lies awake, thinking about his 4 months left in Alacria, when the egg from Sylvia starts to crack, releasing strange magic. Through a split, a glowing eye appears, startling him. The egg hatches, revealing a tiny dragon. Arthur gently picks up the sleepy creature and tries to communicate, only to be bitten, leaving a burning mark. Suddenly, a glowing crest appears, easing the pain. Moments later, he hears the dragon's voice in his head and realizes she's speaking to him telepathically. He names her Sylvie, after her mother, and she seems to like it. Still stunned, he stares at the crest, trying to understand, shocked by the thought. He's a father at just 8. Tired, he lies down and Sylvie snuggles beside him. His parents are definitely in for a surprise. The next morning, Tessia arrives to wake him with her usual elegance. As she pulls off his blanket, she's shocked to find a dragon curled up beside him. Arthur wakes up to her excited squeal, not fear, but joy at seeing the cute creature despite its clear dislike for attention. Sylvie instantly realizes this elf girl will be trouble. Later, while heading to training through the woods, Tessia keeps calling to Sylvie like she's a pet, but the dragon growls and hides under Arthur's chin. At the training field, Virion is stunned to see the dragons will already awaken and walking on 4 legs, though no one would believe it's a true dragon. He tells Arthur to just call Sylvie a rare mana beast. Moving on to training, now that Arthur is a beast tamer, he must strengthen both his mana and beast cores. The best method? Real combat. Suddenly, Virion releases a powerful blast and morphs into a massive shadow beast. He vanishes and reappears behind Arthur in an instant, forcing the boy to surrender, drenched and exhausted. The transformation is enough to scar anyone. When Virion shifts back, Arthur admits he barely sensed him. The old elf explains the Shadow Panther is an elite blend of wind and sound magic. Like any potent weapon, it had drawbacks. This one devoured absurd amounts of mana. The master reverted to basics, handing Arthur a wooden sword. After days of relentless drills, Arthur tamed the weapon's will. Oddly, the chest pain vanished and training barely wore him out anymore. Sometimes he even got to be a normal kid with his best friend. During the city's exchange festival, Tessia acted oddly distant. There, Arthur unknowingly insulted the kingdom's most conceited elf, Ferith Ivzar II, by not recognizing him. Furious, Ferith demanded a rematch and lost badly. Tessia later reminded Arthur who he was and Arthur offered a hand, which Ferith reluctantly accepted. A friend joked the duel was just a weird way to make friends and nicknamed him Fafi, worsening his humiliation. Amused, Arthur asked if they were exchange students. Ferith boasted they were chosen on merit, but his friend exposed the truth. They were elite kids sent as diplomatic reps. Arthur assumed Tessia was picked the same way. Embarrassed, she lowered her gaze. When someone teased her about being a fragile princess, she snapped and punched him into the dirt. Arthur pulled her away and scolded her. In another life, he'd never have dared. Tessia cried, upset about his departure, and said Ferith reminded her of her dad. Calling Arthur a geyser, she stormed off. Later, Arthur invited her for a walk. They wandered into a restricted forest where eerie horned wolves lurked. Afterward, they built a fire. Tired and delirious, Tessia mistook a tree for a monster. Arthur teased her, but she blamed the cold and hurled a giant log into the flames. Tessia asked what the human lands were like, but Arthur couldn't give a real answer. He hadn't been there long. Quietly, she confessed she wished he could stay in the elven realm forever, then fell asleep mid-sentence. The next day, Arthur packed for the long-anticipated cultural exchange. At the park, children gathered for departure. His master gave him a compass marked with the Aerolith seal, a guide to find his way back to Eleanor. Arthur asked about Tessia, and her parents exchanged a grim look. As the portal opened, Arthur stood by it with Faith and the others. Suddenly, Tessia appeared, calling his name. She stumbled and Arthur hurried to help, smiling gently. Tearfully, she pleaded with him to eat well. He hugged her and promised he'd miss her too. After a long trip to the floating city of Xyrus, Arthur stepped off the carriage, leaving the group behind. He walked to a house, took a deep breath, and knocked. A little girl opened the door, startled. Moments later, Alice and Reynolds arrived, chasing after their daughter, Eleanor. That's when Arthur's parents finally saw him again. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.